to you about self-defense, how to keep yourself safe. And a little bit about me. So I've been a practicing attorney for about 27 years. I currently work for a legal aid in the Chicago area. I've done a lot of different legal work in my time, but for the past few years, it's been focused on legal aid. So I really enjoy that, helping folks out. But I've been involved in martial arts for even longer than that. That's been probably about 40 years. And in that time, I've done a lot of different martial arts, but my focus has always been on practical self-defense. I'm not real big on all the other parts of it because I always wanted the practical part. How am I going to defend myself? And then about 12 or 13 years ago, I created my own company. It's called Best Defense Concepts. Essentially, it's just me, but I teach self-defense essentially to individuals, and I also go out and I do presentations to groups. So I go to libraries, I go to senior centers. I do a lot of kind of how you guys found me, I think, through an organization called freespeakers.org. People contact me and say, we'd like someone to come out and talk to our organization about self-defense. So I do those frequently. And I also do paid self-defense courses for corporations and companies throughout the Chicago area. And as you can see, there's a picture behind me. This was actually where I used to live a couple of years ago, kind of my workout area where I train people or I work out myself. We moved to a new place and have a little large area now, but I don't have that photo up. But you can see the stuff I've got, plenty of gear and tools and training equipment, a bunch of canes there because I do teach a lot of seniors, mostly seniors and adults. So that's me. But so now I want to get to kind of the topic because there's a lot to cover and we have a very short time. Now, afterwards, you're going to be getting a copy of a handout that I created that covers a lot of these issues. There's also reference material in there. So if you're looking to read more, there's a lot of good books that I reference. And I think you should take some time if you find some of those areas interesting to read those materials. I tend to look at a lot of different books. A lot of them aren't really great at conveying the information or presenting it in a way that's useful. And so the books that I've listed are the ones that I've found over time are the best, at least from my opinion. I'm sure there are others out there, but these are the ones that, for those I've kind of listed them in the areas. So, take a look at that. So first thing I want to talk about is when people think of self-defense, they think about the physical stuff, punching, kicking, and throwing. And while that's all great and certainly can be a part of it, the truth is most self-defense is really non-physical. 90% or more is really non-physical, and it is made up of two things. Number one is situational awareness, paying attention to what is going on around you. If I can pay attention to what is going on around me in the world, I stand a better chance of avoiding getting into a situation where I need to use physical skills. Because if it comes to where I have to actually start defending myself with physical skills, it's not clear what's going to happen, right? You could be the greatest fighter of all time, but still you have a bad day and the other person has a good day, the bad guy. And, things don't go your way, and it can be everywhere, anything from, a minor injury to a major injury to maybe you don't survive at all. So we want to avoid physical altercations whenever possible. So situational awareness. One of the books that I recommend that's in the materials, it's called The Gift of Fear, written by Gavin DeBecker. Gavin is very well known for his, he's got a company out in, I believe it's in California. So it's private investigation as well as personal protection, and he protects some of the highest value individuals in the world. And this book, Gift of Fear, has been out for quite some time, and it's usually cited by most self-defense instructors. And it talks about why fear is a gift, right? How is it that fear helps us? Well, if you look at just about any animal like ourselves, or pick any other animal, fear is what keeps us alive. And unlike other animals, we are able to override that fear by thinking too much about things, right? So if you look at certain other animals, they're not able to do that because it is so ingrained in them that there could be danger, they just react. And that's something we need to kind of think about for ourselves. Just quick two examples, right? Think about a horse. My wife and I were out at a ranch number of years ago, and we were sitting, we did all sorts of riding in mountains and things. And then one day we were just in a corral and she was just sitting on the horse waiting to do some real simple kind of training exercises. And on the back of her saddle was a rain jacket. and it happened to come loose and kind of fluttered in the wind. The horse got spooked, threw my wife off, and just bolted, right? Because it's like, I don't know what it is. Something moved. I'm afraid, and so it just reacted. Fortunately, she was banged up and a little bruised, but was all right. But the point is, the horse didn't stop to think about, hey, I wonder what that is. Should I be concerned? Should I just ignore it? It just reacted. And over the years, my wife and I have had a couple of hedgehogs. I don't know if you're familiar with hedgehogs. They're cute little spiny creatures, real sweet. But for them, if fear is a gift, then every day is Christmas for them because they are afraid of everything. I mean, the one we had that lasted the longest was 5 years, and still, you'd go in and you'd see our hedgehog every day. We called him Q, and you'd go to pick him up and take him out, and he'd react like he'd never seen you before, and it's been 4 years, just because it is in their nature, because they are prey animals. So they cower, they protect themselves. We are very good at saying, oh, that noise that I heard, I shouldn't worry about it, or maybe I should ask someone else and see if I should be worried, right? Instead of saying, okay, I don't know what that is, I need to protect myself. So we need to focus on how do we look for things, keep our eyes open. I don't want people to be paranoid. I just want you to be aware, which means don't be so focused on when I'm going to or from work or to and from anywhere that I'm looking in my hands at my phone or my device and I forget to see the world around me. Right? It could be anything from, you know, uh, some sort of environmental issue, right? So I'm stepping into, manhole cover is missing, I'm stepping in an open manhole, or I'm just walking into traffic when the light hasn't turned, right? So it's not just self-defense, it's self-preservation. Okay, so situational awareness is key. One quick story about that. There was, and I don't remember where the city was, but there were two people on a motorcycle, and what they were doing was you had the motorcycle driver and then the passenger. They were both wearing dark helmets, and they didn't have plates on the motorcycle. And what they would do is they would drive up to a curb where someone was standing right on the curb, stuck in their phone doing whatever, and the passenger would just, they pull up, the passenger would reach out, grab whatever was in the person's hand, and they'd take off. So no situational awareness there, because had there been situational awareness, the person who was just robbed could have taken a step backwards, been out of reach of the person on the motorcycle. Nothing would have been taken because they weren't spending time getting off the motorcycle and doing all this stuff, right? It was quick, they just wanted quick robberies, and they were able to do that. So pay attention to what's going on. If you pay attention, you stand a much better chance of avoiding things. Number two, de-escalation. All right, so there's another book out there, which I'm not 100% sure if this is in your materials or not, but it's called Verbal Judo. So Verbal Judo is a book that talks about how can you talk your way out of a situation. You're just trying to use language, speaking to people, talking to people, using certain, phrases, mannerisms, and the whole idea is not to make things escalate, right? So you get in a situation, think about, for example, you're in a parking lot and you go to park your car and you park your vehicle and you get out, and now someone else is really mad at you because they believe you took their spot, right? There's nobody's names on these spots, but they had their eye on it, and for whatever reason they thought they should get it first, but you parked in their spot. So now they're mad. So you get out, they come out, and now you're face to face in a confrontation, which could start out verbal, but soon escalate to physical, partly based on how you react to them. So, in those situations, what I recommend to people is, first of all, you want to try and keep your voice calm. It's hard when you are personally involved in a situation to not get, kind of wound up. It also depends on, maybe you've had a bad day too. And so it just takes a little bit to push you over the edge, because now you're also aggravated, and this just adds on to that. It's like, I didn't do anything wrong, so I'm going to defend myself. But instead of that, think of, okay, just going to remain calm, apologize, even if you did nothing wrong. Hey, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize you were waiting for that spot. Would you like me to move my car? I can move my car. I'll park somewhere else. All right. Yeah, sure, it's a pain. Maybe there's, and again, you could be entirely in the right. But the point is, if you get angry and mad, and now this person is getting angrier and madder, it goes from this verbal to physical, right? So, and this happens frequently, these kinds of things. We have no idea what set this person off. Maybe they had a bad day, and this is just one thing they couldn't take on top of everything else that went wrong, and you just happened to be there. But if you tend to, keep your voice calm and low and apologetic, sometimes these things will get diffused and the person might just realize, hey, I'm really sorry. I just, things weren't going well for me today. Forget about it, right? And things, it doesn't escalate into something physical. However, at the same time, you also want to keep in mind, I need to prepare myself in case this does get physical. So any situation you're in, you're paying attention, you're walking down the street, you see somebody, okay, you note that they're there, keep going. If this person then decides to grab or try and attack you, at least you know that they're there, as opposed to being completely taken by surprise. But let's say someone comes out while you're walking on the street and asks you for the time, or do you have a cigarette, or do you have any money? This can be a ploy that they use frequently to try and get you off your guard so they could then try and rob you, right? So you want to prepare yourself in a way that you can deal with it if they decide to become aggressive. Part of that plan is really to have your hands up in a position where my hands are between me and that person. And right now you see me with my hands, let me see, just a little bit, there we go. So I'm talking with someone and now my hands are here, right? This doesn't look aggressive. But if my hands are up and someone decides to come and attack me or try and grab me or hit me, my hands only have to go from here to here, all right? Now, this isn't an ideal position to be in, and unfortunately, trying to do the physical stuff in camera and not in person with a short period of time, I can't do much there. I did send Arlene a video of a presentation my wife and I did a number of years ago that demonstrates some of those things. If you also look up Best Defense Concepts on YouTube, I have a lot of videos there. So you can see some of the physical skills there better shown when there's two people as opposed to me just trying to demonstrate on video. But my point here is having my hands up is better than having my hands down in my pockets, behind my back, holding stuff. Because if someone decides to attack me and my hands are down, I'm at a loss because I have to try and see what they're doing. I have to react to it. I have to protect myself. And that all takes time. And people who are trying to take advantage of you realize that you are not in a good position. They see you as an easy target. So part of self-defense is, looking like you're paying attention, seeing people, noticing what's going on, being what they call a hard target, not someone who's just completely taken by surprise and they're saying, oh, I can take advantage of this person. You want to be someone they're like, oh, this person's too aware of what's going on. They look very confident. They're walking quickly. They know where they're going. I don't want to deal with them, right? Most criminals don't want to get caught and they don't want to get hurt, okay? So what we want to do is we want to make sure that they are looking for unfortunately, they're going to look for some victim. I can't fix that problem, but I can, try and make it so it's not me, okay? So keeping our hands up in some ways is perfect, to kind of just calm the situation down, right? Because if my palms are out, this tends to be kind of the universal sign of, hey, take it easy, right? I don't want any trouble. But if I had to, one of the first things I teach people, particularly, like I said, I teach a lot of seniors, is I just think of reaching out with my hand, using the tips of my fingers, and trying to jab a finger in somebody's eye, right? That's one way I could just immediately attack somebody. Or if they're attacking me, I defend myself, protect my face. I reach out, stick a finger in their eye, try and get them to close their eyes, realize that they're having a hard time dealing with that because they didn't expect it, gives me an opportunity to leave, right? So a lot of what I try and teach people is, hey, I'm not here to win a fight. I'm here to survive, which means I need to hurt a person enough who's attacking me to cause them to stop attacking me and give me an opportunity to leave, all right? So there's a lot that goes into that. I just told you one thing real quick, which is, I attack the eyes, but we look at the vulnerable targets on the body, tends to be the eyes. The throat, of course, is extremely vulnerable to attack. So if I'm hitting someone in the throat, let's imagine I had, my cell phone in my hand. All right, so I'm holding my cell phone and someone comes up to me and they're threatening me, particularly if they're threatening me with deadly force or to take me somewhere, right? I never want to be taken anywhere. I'm going to use my cell phone, right, to just hit the person in the throat, right? It's a quick shot to the throat. It's an extremely sensitive target, right? If I hit this right, it's potential I can do serious damage, from just a choking and gagging reflex to actually breaking this here and perhaps causing a person to choke and die if they don't get a tracheotomy, right? So this is a target that I tell people, hey, you should not be attacking that unless you have a serious concern about your safety, or if someone's really threatening to hurt you or take you somewhere. So, part of self-defense is learning the situational awareness and the de-escalation. Another part of it is just learning to use the tools that you have with you all the time. Your hands, right? The palm is what I teach to people to use as a striking weapon, as addition to your fingers, not fists. Fists are hard to make well, easy to hurt your hands. Plus, when my hands are open, they don't look like weapons, right? So there's a lot that goes into this. Foot movement, trying to look at how you move and how you stand. There's a lot of things that you should think about as part of being an effective way of defending yourself. So a lot of these things are in the handouts that I've given out to you guys. One of the other things I'll say is that stress makes defending yourself more difficult. So someone is threatening you with life or death consequences, right? The stress you feel is hard to deal with. So you have fight, flight, or freeze, kind of the 3 F's there, right? So fight or flight, and then the freeze can be a bad one where you just don't do anything because you don't know what to do. So when you're under this stress and you don't deal with it regularly, like some occupations do, right? Nurses, doctors, they have to deal with life and death situations all the time. Police, fire, military, they kind of learn how to deal with that adrenaline and all that, energy that kind of comes to the body. But most of us don't, because we don't face that kind of stuff regularly. So when someone's threatening your life, you're like, okay, I could run, I could fight, right? Or sometimes there's, I don't know what to do, right? Your body's ready to fight, but it doesn't know what to do. And on top of that, the physical reaction you have tends to cause auditory exclusion. You kind of lose the ability to hear. It can cause visual problems where you can't focus real well on anything. And also the body tends to draw all the blood away from your extremities towards your core, so you're ready to fight or run, which makes it's hard to do fine motor skills, dexterous things. So dialing a phone can be difficult, right? Using keys in a lock can be difficult. And sometimes we see this even when we're in a hurry, right? We're not under life or death, but we're in a hurry to get somewhere because we're late. And you find, okay, you're trying to stick a key in a lock or call a number or do something. You're like, and you keep doing it wrong because you're in a hurry, right? Just imagine that being like tenfold. So, trying to deal with that stress is hard. So we try and teach people things that are gross motor skills, caveman type movements. I use the base of my fist as a hammer fist strike, a palm strike, things I can do under stress that are easy to replicate and easy to practice. Now, I don't have a lot of time, so I do want to leave some time if people have questions. Does anybody have any questions they'd like me to try and answer at this point?
Peter, do you have any suggestions on there has been some incidents wherein like if you're on a traffic stop and suddenly you get dragged out of your car?
So, I mean, part of the issue is, first of all, when you're stopping at traffic lights and other vehicles behind you, part of it is people will do they'll tap your bumper. They want you to get out versus they want to come up and they want to drag you out of your car. So it could happen either way. So number one, when you're getting in your car, always make sure your doors are locked, right? So you get in your car, don't get in your car, start using your phone and forget to lock your doors, right? So lock your doors. And then when you are coming to a stop and you have a vehicle in front of you, keep enough space between you and the vehicle in front of you so that if someone were to come over to your car and your doors are locked, they're trying to get in, you have the ability to go around that person if necessary. If you're too close, it becomes difficult. So there's a couple things to keep in mind. Hands up when you have a purse or laptop bag. Here's the thing, right? We have in life, we carry stuff around with us. So at some point, if I need to put something down, I prefer at least have one hand free, right? I understand we hold things that are important to us. Purse is going to have a lot of important stuff in there, but I should have at least one hand free. If both my hands are tied up, my ability to defend and attack is really limited. So we need to try and figure out how to do that. How do you distinguish between the gift of fear and being paranoid? You know, if you know, that's a tough one. I think that sometimes we just overreact to everything. So to me, when I think of being prepared, it's just a matter of going through life going, okay, as I'm walking down the street, I'm just scanning, monitoring. I'm trying not to be afraid all the time, even though bad things happen. I just thinking, how can I be prepared? I go into a restaurant, I sit down, like, okay, where are the emergency exits in case there's a fire, right? Or I go into any place, I want to know where the exits are if something happens. So it's more of just trying to think of how can I be prepared as opposed to thinking everywhere I go, I'm going to be attacked. Of course, it's easier said than done because if you have been the victim of crime, I think it's harder. But then too, people who have been the victim of a crime, a robbery, or worse, they tend to feel better once they start taking self-defense lessons because it shows now that they've learned to have some ability to control, to defend themselves, to have these skills that sometimes we don't have. I'll give you a quick story. I don't see any other questions at the moment about skills. So, husband and wife. It's a story I read a number of years ago. We're at home in their living room. They hear a noise in their attached garage. The wife tells the husband, "You should go check that out." And as he gets up to go and check, a young man comes through the door armed with a pipe wrench that they believe he found in the garage. So now he's threatening this couple, and he says, um, "I want you to give me the firearm or gun that you have in the house." And the wife's like, "We don't have a gun." He's like, "Okay, well then I want you, wife, to tape up your husband." So finds a roll of duct tape and he wants her to tape him up. And the story says that, at this point she realizes things are going from bad to worse, and she's not going to take it, right? She doesn't want to deal with this. So she decides to fight back. Two important factors here. One, the woman is in her 60s, and number two, she had an oxygen tank. So she gets off the couch with her oxygen tank in one hand, and in her other hand, she has a weapon, which is just a back scratcher, right? So she goes after this guy, and I can just, in my mind's eye, I just see her flailing away with her back scratcher. And the story says that, the guy drops his pipe wrench, she runs out of the house. So I tell this story for two reasons. One is that, again, it showcases the fact that this guy who broke in, who really had the power, had the better weapon, he was younger, he was in better shape, he didn't want to get hurt. So he left. He wanted somebody who was an easy target. That was not them. And this woman, she just decided that she was going to fight back. And so she did. And she did the best that she could with what she had. And most of the time, that's enough. So, I tell people, taking self-defense classes is great. If you can do that, you have the time, there's money involved, and time is a big component as well. But if you can't, it's a mental thing, right? So if you decide you're going to fight back, you fight back 100% hard as you can, do whatever you can, scratch, claw, scream, yell. You use the weapons that you've got, what tends to be your hands, elbows, knees, right? Simple stuff. Whatever you have in your hand. Pepper spray would be a good one, I tell people. But that tends to be enough to stop most people from attacking or stopping the attack because they don't want to deal with people who are fighting back.
Do you have any suggestions on car break-ins while the driver or the passenger is in? Either to steal a purse or just to break it in for some reason?
Yeah, so you mean while someone's sitting in the car, right?
Right.
Right. It's tough. When you're sitting in a vehicle, you are very exposed in many ways, right? I mean, you feel safe, but you really aren't. So even if your doors are locked, someone can break the glass. Sometimes they try and get you to roll down your window. You'll have someone come over to the passenger side to get your attention, while another person, their partner, goes over to the driver's side to open the door and drag you out. If you can't drive away and someone's reaching in trying to take something, at this point, I generally recommend you either get out of the car because they usually just want the car or they want your property to give them what they want, because trying to fight within your vehicle is a very difficult thing. So if you can't get away, get out of the car, give them your property. It's the same thing I tell people. If you're being robbed, give them your property because hopefully they will take that and leave. Your life is more important than your stuff, even though some stuff is not replaceable, but your life is definitely not replaceable.